If your sales conversations start with features, you've already lost. Engineers and technical experts often get stuck here, but it's not your fault. You're trained to solve problems, not sell outcomes. But if you want to win more deals, get to decision makers earlier, and stand out, you need to think differently about how you sell now. You don't need to be pushy. You need to be curious, get clear, and help customers to think. That's what I'm here for. I want to support you to be successful in doing that. And that's what this video is all about. We're going to cover a lot because no one said sales is easy. However, we can make it easier when you start to understand certain things. So what are we going to cover? So the first thing we'll have a look at are the challenges that all salespeople have. Doesn't matter if you're an engineer or not. The reason we'll cover those is that within them, there'll generally be some quick fixes. Things that you can start to take away, apply very quickly, and see results pretty much immediately. We'll then have a look at some of the specific challenges engineers have, which need a bit more of a mindset shift. Again, it's very doable when you understand them. As we talk about them, you'll recognize them and think, yeah, that's something I can definitely do. Then we'll start thinking about sales, and I want to talk about the evolution of sales. What's gone on before, what's good practice, the best practice that we need to keep, and what stuff do we need to bid? What are some of the modern twists? Because we're now in a world where we're seeing things change slightly, and we want to bring all the best practice into play. It'll take us on to thinking about selling collaboratively. So that's the route that we're going to go down. And we'll think, okay, well, how can we do this stuff better? To do that, I'll introduce the concept of PQ, partnering skills, how we can use those and bake them into the way that you work so that you co-create, you collaborate, you work alongside your customers. They'll respond far better to this, certainly in the engineering world. Once we've got these elements, we can bring them together into the value framework. So the value framework is the process that we'll be looking at so that you can do this stuff time and time again. And once I've introduced that, we'll get into some real detail, some how-tos, some specific elements. I want to cover 15 elements so that you can take those away and you can use them, again, very quickly. So what I'd suggest is you download the book that's in the notes here, a little workbook that you can use as we're going through the video. Also, save this video for later. There's a lot to cover. It takes a couple of hours. So you might want to come back to it, do it in pieces, or look at certain elements, put them into practice, review, so forth. Yeah, it's not going away, it's here, but it's worth saving, I think. Why is it so long? I want to throw everything at this. I want you to take this stuff away and be able to use it. I want to make a real difference for people who are selling into your world. Okay, so my name's Fred Copestake. I'm founder of Brindis, a sales training consultancy. Over the last 25 years, I've been around the world 14 times, worked in 38 different countries. I've trained over 10,000 salespeople. It's been a real honor to do that, real privilege, a lot of fun. What it's helped me to do is really understand the challenges that salespeople have and what they need to deal with to be successful today. That is what led me to write my first book, Selling Through Partnering Skills. That's the red one. That came out in 2020, the same time as you know what. Yeah, so in lockdown, I'd watched everything on Netflix, all that stuff. And I got to the end of Tiger King and thought, you know what, there's got to be something better we can do here. And so look, I thought, yeah, use time more effectively, because what's happening now is it's causing the speed of change to get faster. Salespeople are going to have to adapt to this stuff quicker. And that's why I wrote my second book, Hybrid Selling. That's that one here. Yeah. It led me to be looking more and more at where we need to be effective today. And ultimately that's led on to the third book, which is Ethical Selling. That's that one there. In this one, what I talk about is we should be looking for win-win-win. What do I mean by this? So your customer wins, your company wins, but also your conscience wins. We want to be aligned in the way that we sell to our own values. If we're not doing that, it's going to be an uncomfortable process. So I'm putting all the stuff from these and bringing it into this video. That's why there's going to be so much stuff. That's why it's going to take a little bit longer to get through it. But it's my job to distill it, to get the essence so that you can take it and use it straight away. The other thing that you see here, that's my orange hat. Now, if we're connected on LinkedIn, you might have seen me wearing that. I put it on once a week when I'm talking about things and ways in which we can think about sales more effectively. Yeah, orange hat thinking. If we're not connected, there's a link again in the notes. Connect with me on there. Tell me you've seen this video. Let me know how you're getting on with it. So yeah, the other thing you can do, of course, is comment below on this. We can have a couple of conversation going on. Yeah, tell me what engineering you're involved with. Yeah, years experience you've got. If I know who's watching this, again, I can tweak some of the content that I'll add below if I think it's going to really help you be more successful. Yeah, so let's use that. Let's use that conversation. Let's get it going on there in comments. Okay, so without further ado, let's get on and start looking at the first of those topics that I outlined. So let's have a look at some of the challenges that salespeople have that stops them getting results. Now, I am talking salespeople in general. Later on, we'll talk about specific stuff for engineers. But this is anybody involved in a sales role. It's stuff that I've picked up as I've been traveling, as I've been working with companies all around the world, and I've seen salespeople do this stuff. Sometimes it's things which creep up on them. Habits start to develop. We don't realize we're doing it. It's a little bit like the frog in the boiling water, or the frog that's been put in the water which starts to gently heat up, and it doesn't realize, and the poor thing boils to death. That's what can happen. If it was something that we realized straight away, chuck the frog in the boiling water, it would jump out. But these things catch up on us. That's why it's important for us to understand. And that's why I'm not going to hang about. I'm going to go straight in. I'm going to be fairly blunt around these. The things which salespeople will do, which stop them getting results, will be that they're ineffective, old-fashioned, and confused. Okay, we need to go into some detail around that, don't we? So let's have a think. I give these little titles, little things that help us remember them. It's little things that we actually say. Because the first one is busy, busy, busy. You've probably heard somebody say this. You've probably said it yourself. Yeah? How are you going? Oh, busy, busy, busy. Well, this is often down to being ineffective. And this leads to being wasteful, it's tiring, because it's unfocused. So when I talk about being wasteful, it's because we're chucking away our most precious asset. That's time. We end up doing trivial stuff. Oh, why do you do trivial stuff? Well, because it's easy, it's fun. But this is when we're not really thinking about the stuff that actually makes a difference. We lose the best opportunities because we're not spending that time thinking. And so what happens is this becomes quite tiring. We chase success with more effort. We throw good after bad. It's the stuff that doesn't work. We end up in this kind of vicious circle where we're just chasing our tails. And this can end up as stress. And that is not a good place to be. It's to do with being unfocused. We're running around in circles. We're spinning plates. We're feeling quite busy. End of the day, oh, I've done loads and loads of stuff. But it's not really made any difference. So these are things which perhaps you recognize. Okay, don't worry, we will cover how to deal with these in a minute. But I want to go through all the challenges first up, because the second is actually quite closely linked. And this is oldie worldy. So I've written it in kind of Shakespearean terms here, because it is about being old fashioned. And what happens here is about being self-centered, too technical, and using poor practice. So self-centered, this is as opposed to being customer focused. So here it's me, we, I. People talk about their product, their service, their organization. You've probably sat in presentations and someone's done this to you and you think, well, so what? Why are you telling me all this stuff? It doesn't really make any sense. So we want to be avoiding this by becoming more customer focused. And again, we'll go into more detail about how to do that. Because the other thing that I see, and actually this one is for engineers, but a lot of salespeople do it, is that you become too technical. Yeah, very technical in approach, we get very detailed, go right down into the weeds. Yeah, really quite a lot of stuff which potentially the customer doesn't need. Now they might, okay, that would be the right thing to do. But potentially we're boring people by going too technical, too deep. Now, normally those first two are about being passionate, being excited about what you sell, which is awesome, it's great. The last one, though, poor practice, this is just using bad techniques. They're better suited to a bygone era. Yeah, it's that manipulative, pushy type stuff that doesn't actually work. All it'll do is push people away. Yeah, we don't want to be doing that kind of stuff. It doesn't make any sense in the modern environment. It stops us getting results. The third thing then is muddled mindset, which is being about being misaligned. And we see this on the organization, management, and individual level. Yeah, this is confusion leading to frustration and wasted effort. It's horrible. It's really not a good thing to see. Let's explain how it goes. So it starts at organization level. So what this looks like is that the organization says, we're consultative, we're customer focused, we're buyer-centric. Awesome, that is what we want to be. Problem is, at the end of the month, it becomes get out there, sell stuff, discount. That's transactional. So stay consultative, act transactional, it becomes a little bit confusing. It's confusing for managers because managers don't know whether they're supposed to be supporting and nurturing, yeah, or whether they're supposed to be pushing, yeah, stick and spreadsheet if you like. I really feel for managers who are caught between this rock and a hard place. But the poor individual, yeah, this confusion leads to frustration, it's wasted effort. They just stood thinking, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I've coached a lot of people who are in this state and it's not great. Again, there's ways which we can get people out of it, and that's what I want to share. So let's think about solutions now, about those challenges that we've got and how we can solve them, because they are very solvable. You'll hear this stuff, and I hope you make a decision to do something about it. Make a note in the workbook. If you haven't downloaded the workbook, get it and make some notes here about what you are going to do. It's often little shifts. Now, we know about this concept of aggregated marginal gains. Yeah, so lots of little things, when they stack up, can really start to make a difference. That's what we can do here. So I want to share a ton of things that if you just start to implement a couple of these, it will make a difference. And people get so much happier. Well, that's for you. So broadly then, the solution is opposite to what the problem was. We need to be more effective, modern, and aligned. Okay, let's have a look at that then in depth. So busy, this is solved by being more effective. So this is about prepare, plan, use, process. So prepare, this is about making the most of those opportunities. When we're trying to do loads and we're running around and being really active, we often don't stop and think. We feel like we might be wasting time. Now, that's the wrong mindset. We should be investing time into thinking, because this is where we can start to add value. We invest time to understand the customer, understand what we think might be valuable to them. Try to think about, what are the things we're going to talk to them about so that we can help them to think. I would say it even goes back to actually thinking about the right kind of prospects, the right kind of people that we can do the right work with, choosing them, and then we can understand what will be important to them. And this feeds into our plan. A good plan will give us balance. It's going to help us reduce all that stress. When we're busy, everything becomes a priority. Our judgment is clouded. We're in this kind of manic mode, rushing around. But if we stop and work out, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? It really does start to make a difference. We do things on our terms. And this goes from accounts to meetings, calls. Everything can have a plan to it. When we've got a plan, we can play to that plan and we can adjust when we need to. And so focusing on process, using tried and tested methods, structured ways of working, right for you, right for the organization, right for the customer, that is where we can start to make a difference. Now, I still meet salespeople who see this as a weakness. So, I'm responsive, I'm intuitive. Yeah. Think of it as a game plan. Think of it as that we've got systems, procedures, templates that we can use time and time again because we know they work. And that's going to free up thinking space to consider, what is going to be important to the customer and how can we bring this into effect. When we think about oldie worldy, this is about modernizing. So modernizing, we flip, follow and focus. Flip, follow, focus. And this is probably both the easiest and the hardest thing to do. I think it is the easiest thing to do, and that is to flip attention into the world of the customer. I see this particularly in presentations. Go and have a look at your presentation. Does it start off with a map of the world with little dots all over it for your locations and pictures of your product and offices and all of this self-centered stuff around you? Flip it around to what the customers care about, them. Everyone's favorite subject is themselves, right? So flip it around them. It's easy. You just move slides from the top to the bottom, yeah? But I think a lot of people struggle to do this. It's what I will really encourage people to do, and also push them in the nicest possible way to make that shift, because it makes such a difference. The logo slides, looking at all that stuff, it doesn't really sell. Showing you understand somebody, that is what sells. So we follow an approach that works to identify people's issues. Now, we're not trying to force a solution. We're not trying to say, hey, look how great we are. Yeah, we prepare and we manage the conversation to follow a path that's going to take us into a place where we're discussing stuff and collaborating with the customer. That's what we want to try and do. We want to try and follow that process and really focus on the stuff that actually works. There's a lot of talk of these old school tricks that are just nonsense. They don't really work. I think I've said already, it's work to push people away. Yeah, we want to look at what works now. Yeah, there have been some shifts, but we can make these little shifts. Yeah, know that we can do it. I've done it myself, done it with clients. So here then we can look at how can we align. Yeah, and this is probably more for sales leaders who are listening to this. I hope you are, and if you want to pass this on to your sales leader, please do. This is about clarity, coaching and confirmation. So here we need clarity. This is how we sell, this is what we do, and this is how we do it. We stand by our way. We're not going to keep flipping and flapping between consultative and transactional. We've got a way, we've got a process, it is biocentric, it's aligned to how they think and how they make decisions, and so that's what we're going to do. This can then mean that coaching can take place. Coaching is one of the most powerful things in sales. Yeah, get a sales coach. If you haven't got a coach, if your manager's not coaching, go external, get a buddy, get somebody that you can talk to help you get better. That's certainly something we can help with, but really coaching makes a massive difference. Look at the best performers in the sports world. They all have coaches. I mean, the very top have a number of different coaches for a number of different things. So yeah, why shouldn't we if we talk about being elite? But the best thing I think when we've got this clarity is that we know we're doing the right thing. We know we're doing the right thing. It's amazing how much happier people will tap into this intrinsic motivation, this way of thinking about, yeah, I know what I'm doing here, and so I can do the right thing, I can make decisions. And this is a far better way. We want to assist salespeople to do this. So something you can grab below, as part of the thing I put together to help you implement this stuff, is a scorecard. This is a collaborative selling scorecard. If you go through this, it will start to take you through some of the thinking that you need to do to make the shift. There's 30 questions in there. I should know, shouldn't I? There's 30 questions in there that are for reflection, but they also create you a report around how you can start to make these shifts. Okay, it's free, just download it. So we talked about the challenges that all salespeople have. Busy, oldie worldy, muddled mindset, how we can deal with by becoming more effective, more modern and clear. Great. Hopefully you've taken things away from that and are going to or using those to improve the way in which you sell. But this particular video is about sales mastery for engineers. So I want to look at some special reasons, if you like, that can become blockers for engineers, but which you're smart enough to be able to deal with once you know they're happening. So again, I'm going to get straight to the point and call these out as being an entitled approach, an engineering superego, and an entrenched depth perception. Now, I'm not doing this to be rude. I'm doing it so that you can recognize those. And I'm sure that as we start to go through them, you will recognize them and hopefully crack a wry smile saying, yeah, that is something that we do. I know whenever I've stood in front of a group, I was a tiny little bit nervous about doing this, but I also know it's true. And usually we get to the point where everyone does smile and say, yeah, and often we're worse than that. But look, let me start to explain what they are. So the entitled approach. Let me just put a little question for you, actually. What do these have in common? What do these have in common? Okay, so the answer to this is websites. Many engineering companies will have pictures of their products or stuff about their company on their website. Okay, now maybe this is more marketing than sales, but it does have a massive impact. The impact it has on sales is that it can cause this entitled approach. And so what this is, it's when engineers start to use this technical expertise and assume that that is what is going to automatically win their business. They are great at what they do. Their product is superb. And so rather than have to focus in on the value it builds for the customer, they will talk about the product itself. You often hear this, the product sells itself. And kind of similar to the second thing on there, which is the product features. They'll just talk about specs. I think the customers will recognize how excellent this is, and it doesn't need any extra selling, any other conversation around that. Another thing that can get in the way, I've certainly seen this, is that there can be a resistance to messaging things around the customer's perspective. In other words, people think that their own technical superiority, the way in which that they can deal with something, is going to drive sales, rather than looking at the business's pain point and why they might be buying something. I've seen this. I heard engineers call out an idea a customer was having as being stupid because they didn't agree with it. But what they didn't understand was why the customer was trying to do this. It was to do with a hydrogen pipeline, many, many kilometers long. Yes, it was a better way of transporting energy, but the reason they were building the pipeline was something very specific to the customer. So these things can get in the way. These are similar to, but not exactly the same as, the engineering superego. So I'm going to ask you the same question, but it's a different answer this time, okay? What do these things have in common? Now, they can't happen without engineers. Rockets to radiators. Engineers make life better. Build stuff, work, rest, play. So undoubtedly, engineers tend to be quite successful people. Yeah? They've been conditioned to see themselves as problem solvers. You have been conditioned to see yourself as problem solvers, top performers. So sometimes it can be difficult to accept feedback around things that you might not be so great at, which in this case could be selling. Yeah, the identity is linked to performance, to technical achievements, to brilliant things that you've achieved practically. And so when we get into having human conversations, which can be a bit ambiguous, a bit nebulous, a bit kind of difficult to pinpoint how they actually work, that can become difficult. And so I often see a bit of resistance to sales training and sales frameworks, which could be a preconception that it's not a real science, it isn't something that's actually got proper structure behind it, or it's something that's unnecessary, it's below somebody's level of expertise. And this stuff can get in the way. The third element then, which can be a blocker specifically in this profession, is the entrenched depth perception. Same picture, Same question. What do these things have in common? Different answer again, though. Different answer. Right. In this case, what they've got in common is complexity. And I'm not just talking about the machine. Yeah, the racing car, the jet fighter, the windmill. I know they're not called windmills. I actually work with companies that make these turbines. I call them windmills just for fun. If that's something you make, I kind of apologise, but again, all meant in jest. No, what we're talking about here is that, the turbine, it's connected to others. It's connected to a grid. It's connected to a whole country's energy system. The racing car, connected to telematics, connected to the crew, connected to the team, to the whole sponsorship platform that the team's running. The jet's connected to the squadron, connected to the country's defence system. What can happen, though, is engineers, when given a problem, will zoom in on that. So the conversation, all those things could be about the O-ring. So that's what this entrenched depth perception is trying to capture. Often engineers use that brilliant problem-solving brain to jump in for the fast fix. Yeah. Rather than just take a step back and think, okay, what's the more strategic, bigger picture thing that we need to do for our customer and their needs? It's, all right, see that problem, know how to fix it, bang, jobs are good. And it's kind of a short-termist way of thinking. So rather than, again, thinking the longer-term business impacts of something that the customer's trying to achieve and positioning the solution as that, it's saying, yeah, look, know how to deal with it. I'm fixing that particular problem. So this manifests itself in jumping into technical details too soon. Almost like that engineering superego saying, hey, yeah, look, I know how to fix this. Going in and then overwhelming customers with a ton of information that they don't necessarily need, rather than focusing on the structured customer decision-making process and aligning to that. Now, the good news is we can deal with those pretty quickly. Let's look at that entitled approach. The fix to that we've already touched on. This is all about being more collaborative in the way that we work. Customer-centric thinking. So this is having conversations not just to talk about the technical specs, but really thinking about what the customer is trying to achieve. Why are they trying to do that? What's going on in their world? So this is very closely related to value-based messaging. When we understand this stuff and what it's likely that customers are trying to do, that's how we can start to put our messages together in a way that customers are going to value. Or at least translate features, translate some of the functions into what that actually means from a measurable business outcome. It makes it far easier to work with customers. Other thing to do is to get involved in storytelling. So storytelling might sound soft. I mean, yes, it's a soft skill, but it's also a very important way in which we can help our message get through. It's how the human brain works. We've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. So this is just about structuring the way in which we put information together so that it's more likely to land better. Cover some of that later when we get into those 15 different elements that I promised. So when we think about this engineering superego, we deal with that by adapting this partnering mindset, partner's mindset. And so what we're doing here is reframing what sales is. Yeah, I've used this expression before, sell to serve. And that's what we're saying. It's just a way of problem solving. And that involves understanding people and what they're trying to do. And so this engineering mindset works very well with it. We just think more like a partner. And so if we can shift mindset to being curious, so rather than looking for certainty every time, if we're curious about what's going on with the customer in their world, how we can deal with them, then we will have more successful conversations because we start to act as the sense maker. The salesperson is the sense maker. And so this can be uncomfortable. because we're stepping out of this comfort zone when we're talking about black and white engineering, mathematical, logical ways of operating into something which is a little bit more nebulous. But if we're okay in doing that, we'll find the conversations are better, as are the solutions that we put together for the customer's whole problem. And so this entrenched depth perception, this just needs a new view, a new way of looking at something, different perspective. So a way to do this is to understand questioning. Questioning skills, they are core to sales. Now, so we can train, we train engineers to ask questions in a way that salespeople do. Now, what happens if we don't solve this issue? What's the problem that this causes? What's the impact of this thing? To help customers think. We also make a shift from immediate problem fix into thinking more about the account as a whole, the thing that they're trying to achieve, what they want to do as a business, and start to align our fixes, our people, our processes, everything we do with the customer and the way they work. So that what we're actually doing is we're talking about the business impact, how a technical solution is actually impacting on the stuff that the people, perhaps more senior in the company, are more bothered about. Growing revenue, reducing risk, giving the shareholders, the stakeholders what they need. When we can do this stuff, we're in a far better way to embrace selling and to bring that brilliant engineering mind and that way of solving problems to what it is we're doing day to day. So let's have a look at the evolution of sales. The reason I'm going to do this is because it's going to help us understand what's relevant today. We'll go through the history and we'll grab the stuff that still works, and we'll look at some of the subtle tweaks to those things that makes it even more effective when we're selling in today's environment. So if you're using the workbook, this is a chance to make some notes as to what these things are and what those little tweaks are. It's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Please do not think it's that. A lot of good stuff that's gone on before and things that you might already know are going to be relevant. So what we'll do is we're going to go back in time travel if you like, and we're going to look at these different eras. Now, I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to this, and I find it fascinating how sales kind of reflects where we were at the time. And you start to see this. So we'll go back to the 1950s, post-war, where it was all about rebuilding. This is about being effective, about being efficient. And so when we looked at sales, this was very much about using tried and tested methods, about having good, solid sales process. Absolutely the same today. I'll talk about one from this era later on in the video. The AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action, meeting structure. Some weren't so popular back then, so things like proposals. But again, I'm going to talk about that. So we can look at how these templates, these ways of working time and time again are going to help us. Now, some stuff is brand new. Like how we might put together a video message. Didn't exist in 1950. How you might post on social media, on your social selling. Again, wouldn't even cross the minds of people back then. But there are structures and frameworks that we can use. When we go back to the 60s, now the 60s, I always think of this era that was fascinated with the brain, fascinated with how we were thinking. And so what's exactly the same in the way in which we sell today is understanding psychology, people's thinking preferences, how we can adapt to that so our communication is more effective because we're more comfortable. It's more comfortable for them to receive that. That hasn't changed a great deal. Our understanding of neuroscience has. Yeah, functional MRI scans let us see inside the brain, let us understand better than ever what's going on. Plus, there are tools we can use. When I tell people that we can understand somebody's personality style before we've even met them, they'll often look at me like I'm speaking nonsense. We can. Now, this is using things like crystal nose, Humantic, so using technology products which can read that person's outputs all over the internet and start to give us this sense of how they're thinking. I've played with these, they're incredibly accurate. When we look at the 1970s, what's the same? Well, we're talking about benefit selling then, feature advantage benefits. Good, solid basis and something that we need to understand. I sometimes think of sales like kind of building little Lego models. We've got basic Lego blocks that we want to build up into something that's more meaningful. This is one of those blocks, benefit selling, understanding why people buy stuff. The shift I think we have today is that sometimes we're too reliant on product training and we should be doing training that's giving more insights. So we can go too heavy on the features, advantage, benefits and not really around the thinking that we can bring to the party as much as explaining our solution. I'll talk about that later in the video, but certainly it is still something that we would want to understand. So when we go to the 80s, the 80s when it comes to sales, we need to be very careful. Yeah. There was a great time for music, in my humble opinion. From sales, there were some really strange things going on. This was the close era. This was the objection handling, arm wrestling customers, getting them to submit. Lots of very questionable sales practices that I wouldn't recommend to people now. I'd recommend that actually we do bin that stuff. What is the same though, is that sales is a series of advancements. It's getting commitment to various stages. The more complex the sale you're involved with, if you're selling an engineering product, it's probably quite complex. Then we need to be moving people forward, helping them get to the point where they're going to be buying and enjoying the outcomes. So look, that's exactly the same as how we go about closing. That's always different. Other new stuff that we can tap into is the science, the neuroscience into decision making. Also, if we look at conversational intelligence, so recording calls, recording meetings, looking at what people are saying, understanding language patterns. Another thing that wouldn't be so popular back then, but is now, is using a mutual action plan. So outlining who is doing what to get us to the point of where the customer is going to be enjoying those benefits. So yeah, there's things which we can do to be more ethical, if you like, and to be more consistent in a way of working that the customer wants us to. Good news is that in the 90s, there was a sea change in selling. So here it is C, not the Shakespearean C, but in C for consultative selling. So this is all about understanding where a customer is now, where they want to be, and what the difference is between those positions. So the concept back then was spin selling. Neil Rackham developed this. So I would still talk about that. I still think it's highly relevant. It's a very good foundational or Lego block, if you like. But there are some adjustments. Yeah. So we might talk about challenger sales. So doing this kind of, or having this kind of conversation, but bringing other insights and elevating that, taking it up a level by helping people to think. And sometimes pushing back, challenging people for their own benefit. We're not talking about pushy sales, not talking about pressure selling. We're talking about helping people to think. In the noughties, we talked about value selling or value-based selling. So again, I'd say the concept is exactly the same, and it's still something that's highly relevant. If you think about what we're doing in these areas, is we're taking these things, we're layering them up. We can start to bring them into the way in which we operate today. That's exactly what we're doing. That's exactly what good selling will look like. So here, understanding value, understanding that it's the customer defines value. It's like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. So we need to work in ways which help us understand what that is and help them to understand what that is. I would say what's new now is the level of insights that customers demand, but also that we can access. We can build up a hypothesis. We can help make sense of stuff. We can guide customers through VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Yeah, we're in a VUCA time. We're in VUCA times. So moving through this thinking together with customers, we've got access to more information that we can use to have those more valuable discussions. The discussions are valuable in themselves. Takes us to the 10s. So in the 10s, I was using the phrase of sales stature. I didn't really have anything else to call it. What I meant was that it was about positioning yourself as the go-to person, having this stature and this reputation of being the one who it made sense to talk to. Now we might talk about personal branding. Okay, I know some people hate that phrase. I'm not a massive fan. So reputation enhancement, I am a fan of. I'm a fan of the idea, at least. But what we got now are many more tools in which we can use to do that. So when I was talking about that, Web 2.0 was reasonably new. But now if we look at social media and all the different channels, the ways in which we can put information out there so that you can demonstrate your understanding and help people to make sense and use stuff, it's a lot different now. Case in point, if you're watching this video, I am using this to share information so that you can understand how I think about something, and then perhaps want to work with me later. Perhaps what I'm giving here will be enough for you. Perhaps you'll decide absolutely not. Doesn't matter. The point is that we have these channels in which we can share and present this information. I believe a mistake a lot of people make on this actually is to be too corporate. And so they try to be too professional, too refined. We want to know the person who we're tapping into, who we're potentially going to work with. The other one is that people talk too much about product. No, talk about people's problems. What are the issues, what are the challenges they're trying to solve? Lead with that, talk about that, show you understand that, and there's ways in which you can deal with that. That is going to get you into better conversations. It's the extension into the 2020s. So here, this is where we're talking about collaborative selling. That's the phrase that I use. It builds on the consultative, value-based, enhanced reputation type selling, where we're working together. As a salesperson, we think like a partner. We want to collaborate with people, co-create. We're going to build together. Make sense. It's no longer this kind of antagonistic, combative type relationship. It's a collaborative one that we're working on together. That's where we're going. That's what everything else I'm covering in this video will be tapping into, this means of working. We'll be grabbing some of the concepts from before, but all of these funnel into thinking like a partner and working in this way. That's where we're at the moment. That's where we want to tap into. That's where I want to help you. And so, let's crack on to think about how we can start to make more sense of that. So how are you getting on? Well, I hope. Why not send me a message on LinkedIn or drop a comment here? It'd be great to hear what you've got to say so far, because we've got to the point where I want to introduce you to the value framework. The value framework. This is where we bring together all of that thinking about sales, what's gone on in the past, that evolution, the good stuff that there's been, the bad stuff that we're binning, the modern tweaks. We're thinking about those partnering skills, how we can think like a partner so we can collaborate better. And we're going to put it into a framework so we can capture this and use it time and time again. That's what the value framework does. VALUE, validate, align, leverage, underpin, evolve. Okay, now that might sound complicated. So remember it like this, is a far simpler way. It's just about doing stuff right. 5 things that we've got to do right. So it's about having the right opportunities, doing the right research, having the right conversations, putting the right solutions in place, and getting to the right outcomes. Now, arguably, we could begin at the end, the right outcomes. We sell outcomes. We sell results to people. But to do that, we've got to make sure we're working with the right people. That's what the right opportunities are. Who are they? What do they look like? What are their issues? What are their problems, challenges, needs, aspirations, goals? We need to start thinking, well, okay, what do we need to know about them? That's where we go into deeper research. That's really understanding how this stuff is going to apply to them. And that's what we're going to do in the align phase. So we take this information and we leverage that into the right conversations. We can structure the conversations. We're going to use, in particular, questioning skills so that we can really start to help the customer think. Help the customer think. Remember, the salesperson is a sense maker. If we do that, we're in a better position to ultimately talk about our solution, and we can move on to the underpin part. That's where we put the right solution together. The solution which is going to drive them towards achieving those results. So we think about how we can put that together in a proposal. That's what our proposition is. How we might present that, if we're bringing that to life. bringing it to life with stories. And then the evolve element is we want to make sure that people get those results that we promised because we want to keep working with them. Most of the time, you're selling engineering products and you want to be working with customers for a longer period of time. So we've got to make sure that they get those results that we promised. Yeah. Open up more conversations for more projects. There we go. That's what the value framework is. VALUE. Validate, align, leverage, underpin, evolve. So right opportunities, right research, right conversations, right solutions, right outcomes. That's it. That's this module. Shortest module, but potentially the most important because it's giving us the framework that we can start to build in best practice. And you've already got some of these ideas. That's what I'm now going to do moving forward. I'm going to go tactical on this. I'm going to be picking out 3 things from each of those elements, ones which are key to success in them, and that I think you can take away and you can apply straight away. So again, if you've got your workbook, this will be ideal place to start taking those notes. 15 elements is quite a lot, so make sure you're capturing all the goodness from the stuff we'll be sharing. So the value framework, if you've downloaded the scorecard and then you've done that, then you'll see that the value framework is core to how we build a consistent success, how we can structure the way when we go about selling. This is all to do with thinking like a partner. It's about collaborative selling, how we collaborate. And so that's what's at the core of my first book, Selling Through Partnering Skills. Think like a partner, sell in that way. You don't have to be a partner, not a formal business alliance, but when you think like this, it changes what you say and what you do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this stuff. I'm going to take you through the value framework and I'm going to give you some key points around each part of the model. Again, if you go below, you'll see that there is a book around these 15 elements that I'm going to share. I'm going to give 15 elements. Strap in, because they're coming this way now. Yeah. If you need a bit of a break, do it. Bookmark this, come back, make sure you got the book, make notes as I'm going through these. What it's doing is pulling partnering skills, so PQ, and the more modern ways of working, along with some of the good old-fashioned stuff that is still highly relevant, and bringing it together. So let's walk through this. Let's have a look at some of these 15 key elements. They're there in the book. They're there in the book. Okay, so first part is about the right targets, right opportunities. So this is V for validate, V for validate. And here we talk about profiling the value proposition and messaging. So a little piece of reflection. What are the 3 most important words? 3 little words that you would like to hear. 3 little words. Okay, for me, it's ideal customer profile. I'm a bit sad. But ideal customer profile. This is really important early doors in our selling framework, in our sales process. Because with this, what we can do is we can start to think about the criteria that would define a good customer for us, and we can use that to qualify and disqualify. So qualify, yes, this is going to get my time and effort. I'm going to devote my most valuable resource to this. Whereas we might look on the other hand and say, no, this isn't right for me. This is something I'm going to disqualify. I'm not going down this route. I'm not going to work with them. So then we can start to assign the right amount of activity. We can start to think about how much and what are we going to do to work with this potential piece of business. So the profile and understanding what that looks like is really key. And that will lead us into the next piece where we start to think about the value proposition. Or, as I like to say to people, the value proposition. Many people have a proposition, and that's talking about themselves. When we talk about value, this is understanding or having a really good think about what that could mean from the customer's point of view. What are the external drivers? What are the things that are impacting them? What challenges does that cause for them? And so how will they try to deal with that? And what they're going to be measuring to see if they've done it. That's how organizations are building value. And so if we can think about, well, okay, that's what they're going to be doing, we could probably help with that solution. We can play to our strengths. We can prove that we're the right people. This is a way to align with the way which people make decisions. So we did quite a lot of work around that, often map it out, get on a wall and do all sorts of cool stuff to help people really picture where they are in the customer's buying process. And it starts at the very beginning. Very good place to start, as the song goes. And so the simple way to start thinking about this is to think pain and prize. Pain and prize. What is going on in the customer's world that they don't like? What's causing them pain? What's causing frustration? What's irritating them? And where do they want to be? What's the prize? What does better look like? What's that future state? And if we can go deep into that and really understand that, we can start to package that up in our message. This is again where I would suggest that you take some time to think about this. Customers' pain, what's going on in their world, and where do they not want to be? And so what does good look like for them? Where do they want to be? Try to think about the person. So we're using these words. Yeah, a lot of companies will do this at a surface level where they'll sort of just say stuff. ROI, okay, ROI, what does that mean? What does that mean for the company? What does it mean for the person? Let's go into these in deeper levels. The deeper we go, the better, the more effective our messaging can be. Because this has never been more important. We are being bombarded with messages coming in left, right and centre in every single channel. We need to cut through this. We need to cut through to get through to our customers. Now look, there's tricks and nudges and clever little things we could do, but I would say the best way to think about this is to go relevance. Relevance will cut through. If you're relevant to the person that you're talking about, then they will sit up and pay attention. Think about it from your own point of view. Tons of stuff going on. You're scrolling Facebook, scrolling LinkedIn, watching telly, doing whatever you're doing. Something that grabs your attention is because you're interested in it. Might be what you're thinking about already, and you think, oh no, they're following me. How do they know that I'm thinking about this stuff? It would have probably been there anyway. They might be following you. I don't know. That's a different discussion altogether. But that's the stuff that makes you sit up and think. So whatever the best way to get to customers is, if we've got the relevant message, that is going to help us. Yeah, then we just need to make sure we're getting a channel that's going to land this message in front of them. Tons of different ways to do this. Phones, emails, LinkedIn, sending people lumpy mail. I would send a shoe to a CEO, training shoe. Yeah, get my foot in the door. There's some quick weird pun like this, but it worked. It worked. This stuff works. Something that does work, and you might not have considered using this, is video. Sending a video. I love sending a video. You're probably pro video because you're watching this. Yeah, so I might be preaching to the converted. But sending a video, because then people see you, they hear you, you can express what it is you're saying. Yeah, again, make it relevant. Yeah, make it personal, make it human. Little wave. Oh, how egocentric's that? Picture of me waving on screen next to me waving on screen. So I love a tool called Vidyard. I've got no affiliation with them, apart from I like it, where you can set up the videos and then you can send these out to people. Worth having a little look at. Worth having a little look at, I'd say. Good, there we go. Right, that's the first element of the value framework. Make notes in the book if you've downloaded that. If you've not downloaded it, get it downloaded, make some notes. And we will move on to the next part. We'll move on to the next part, which is doing the right research, or align. How do we align with our customers? And so here we can talk about the account plan, change drivers, and customer value. So to kick us off with this, plans are nothing, planning is everything. Dwight Eisenhower said this. I have to admit, first time I came across this, it didn't make any sense to me. What's that mean? But then when I got it, it became crystal clear. It's the process of planning. It's going through the thinking. It's doing the work to understand stuff better that we create a plan from that is useful when and if the plan fails. Yeah? When and if plan fails, probably will, but then we can adjust. We can course correct because we've got the thinking underneath that. Yeah, so these thinking skills, this investment that we make in understanding stuff makes sense. So account plans have many shapes and forms. here is a structure I quite like because it's reasonably simple. I like simple. Simple gets done. And so this account plan structure, it really works. So first thing is we want to set objectives. What are we trying to achieve with this account? We need to have an objective because that's what we're going to aim at. Yeah, it would be like playing golf without a flag in a hole. You'd just be hitting the ball around aimlessly until you get bored and go home. Some of my golf friends say that's exactly what I do, Fred. But okay, surely you actually try to put the ball in the hole. Well, yeah. So we know where we're going, and then we can start to consider, okay, the DMU, the decision-making unit. Now, unit is the operative word here. Yeah, decision maker. If we concentrate on one person, we're likely to make a mistake. So the decision-making unit is all the people, all the stakeholders, all the folk who've got some kind of say on this decision being made. And we can map those out. We can map those out, we can get a little piece of information about each of them, so we can start to work out, well, actually, am I putting a tick in the box for them? Is that something that they would support when I'm proposing? That takes quite a lot of work. And then this stuff is always moving. We don't do this stuff once and file it. It's a live document. We then do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And most people will do this from their own perspective. This is me selling to my customer. Brilliant, good start, because at least you're thinking about stuff. Go up a level by putting yourself in the customer's shoes. Now you become the customer. They are probably doing SWOT analysis themselves, looking into their market. Now try to do the same. In experience, this is quite tough. We will often drop back into our own position. So I recommend doing this with somebody else who can pick you up and go, no, you're thinking about you. You're thinking about you. You're trying to be them. Yeah, you try to be them. Now you might find out you don't know enough stuff. That is a learning in itself. Same as when you're doing decision-making unit. If you don't know something, that's okay. It becomes a challenge. Yep, so there's something I've got to find out. It's a known unknown that you want to work through. So that we call a mega SWOT. Your position, their position. Then we have a look at competition. I often ask people what's the difference between competitors and competition. Get some interesting answers. I'll give a nudge saying, well, what's the competitor for Coca-Cola? You'd probably answer Pepsi. You're right. Yeah. What is the competition for Coca-Cola? You're probably thinking other soft drinks. You're right. Yeah. What if we went a bit broader? Could it be tea and coffee? Could it be beer? Could it be water? Why are you having Coke anyway? Is it because you want something cold or refreshing? Could be an ice cream then. So it's something else which somebody could do. And do nothing, stay with the status quo, can be competition as well. We then start to look towards the actions. So I like going possible actions and then action plan. So possible actions, you look through all the stuff that we could potentially do, including understanding those pieces of information that we don't know, and then working out, well, actually, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Who's going to do it? When they're going to do it by? That is your action plan. So the account plan starts to take shape. We've got some format to what we're doing. Now, again, something we can do to raise that a level is start to think about what is it they're going to be thinking about? And particularly if we're going more senior, if you're selling at C-suite or you've got some senior management people that you need to be talking to as part of your account plan, start to think about change drivers. Now, change drivers are external drivers. They're things which are happening outside of their organization, which are causing them to undertake some kind of change. Okay, so respect. I won't sing to you, but think of the RESPECT. Yeah, this is regulatory, economic, social, political, environmental, competitive, and technological. They are in the book. They're in the book with some examples. I won't go through them now, but have a look at those and just think, okay, yeah, that could be something that's affecting my customer. Okay, and how? What are they doing to respond to it? That's a way that you can use this to trigger your thinking, to open up ways in which you can go and talk to them about. Because what we're doing here is we're now trying to go from this value proposition, which is fairly broad, into something that's a little bit more specific, and that's really understanding the customer value. Customer value. Okay. Why the Scooby-Doo van? It's the mystery machine. The mystery machine. Because when I think of value, I always think of a colleague of mine, Mike Wilkinson. And on one trip one day, we were going somewhere, I think it was Singapore or something, somewhere cool like that. And we were chatting, and he said, because of course, Fred, value is a mystery. And I said, yes, Mike, it is. And I thought, but what do you actually mean? And he said, look, well, you think about it, it's a mystery because you don't know what it is. Customer probably doesn't know what it is either. Our job is to solve the mystery as to what it is, and then we can start to work on that. I thought, that's awesome. I love that. And I've used that ever since. Always credit Mike. Yeah, top chap. Really had a great trip with him. A couple of great trips. Now, we are at a stage in sales where we've never had the ability to be more prepared to do this. Yes, we're going to have conversations around this, but we can go in with very clever thinking, insights, perspectives to do this. Now, I'm talking about using ChatGPT or generative AI. So look, one way to do this, there's tons of ways to do it, tons of ways, but a little fast one is to go and have a conversation using this format, the rapid research format. So here what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we just chat. Look, you don't need a super prompt or anything like that. Just talk. Called Chat GPT for a reason. And think about who you're selling to. Yeah, what's the role of that customer? You say, look, what is the role of an operations manager in a large factory? Okay. It'll tell you. Great. Okay, you probably know this. Now, there might be a couple of things in there that surprise you. So tell me more. You can always use that. Then we say, what are the aims of the operations manager in a large factory? And well, you might say objectives, you might say KPIs, you might say goals. Yeah, I like AIM because it gives me the acronym. And it'll tell you, right, so now you know what this person's trying to achieve. Okay, hopefully this is getting the great matter ticking. Don't run off and start talking to them about it. Keep talking. And this is where the AI can do something very cool. You can ask it to act as. So act as the operations manager at the large factory. Act as, or you are. Tell me what pressures you experience on a daily basis. Right, so now we're starting to understand what it's like to be that person. And there'll be some pressures and you can't do anything about it, but again, you might get excited and think, I can do something about that. Chill. Because next we're going to go into the next question is asking, what are the impacts of those pressures on a professional and personal basis? So again, we want to know professionally, because we're selling in there, but also when we start to understand more personally, this is where we can start to add emotion more than likely, or add something extra into how we're proposing. The last part, the D, is the dream. So what's the dream? What's the desires? What do you want to achieve? You could go on and start adding bits about your solution in there, but just running this puts us into the best possible place for having more intelligent conversations, because we're talking about them. We are talking about them, not talking about our stuff, talking about them. Hopefully this is coming across loud and clear, right? It's all about them, not about us. Yeah, problem, not product. So, look, another little gift, another little thing that I've dropped in below that you can get access to are the Brindis bots. So, look, AI is here to stay. You can fight it if you want to. I'd go with it. So, link there, Brindis bots will take you to a bunch of GPTs which are trained to focus or to help you focus on certain parts of selling. That they're aligned into the whole value framework. So, in the validates piece, there might be the ideal client profiler that helps you understand pain and price. Yeah, value prop builder. Yeah, getting those ideas and building this hypothesis. A message master, help you create content, emails. Go there, have a little play, and let me know how you get on with them. Yeah, all of this stuff that I'm offering, please give me feedback on it, and whether you find it useful or not. I don't know what to produce more. It ain't good, okay, I won't bother sharing it. Good, right, so let's keep on. We're working through this value framework. Yeah, so far there's 6 ideas. I'm going to share 15. So bear with. So here what we're going to do is talk about having the right conversations. Right conversations. So what we're doing is we're leveraging all of this good information that we've started to get, and we're going to have a better conversation with our customers to help them make sense of stuff. This is where I think there is a bit of a difference in sales today than some of the things that have gone on in the past. The salesperson as sense maker. We're not going in and doing a load of stuff for our benefit so we can pitch our solution. Okay, there's a bit of that, but the more that we can help people make sense of stuff, the more value that we will add. So this is what we're doing here. So this is where this concept of insight is important, and that's what you're developing when you're starting to understand them, their world, their problems, the pain, the prize, things that are going on, the change drivers, stuff that's going to give us a light to shine on something that's going to help them to think. So generating insight, taking an interesting conversation point, using that to kick off conversations, that's a real sales skill. Some of the stuff I've just been talking about, if you're using that, there'll be things which pop out and hopefully you can take and you can say, I can talk to customers about this. It's not about you. Again, yeah, not about you, it's about them, and it's about the stuff they care about. And what we can do is we can wrap this up into the way in which we ask questions. Questions are a salesperson's best friend. So, in the book, you'll see 8 questioning tools written out so you can make some notes next to these as to what they're all about. So we've got open questions, closed questions. Yeah, open questions are ones which give you a variable answer. Closed questions are yes or no. So open questions, they will start the conversation going. In English, these are so easy to remember because they are W words. What, why, when, where, who, how. It's got W on the end. Ask questions or start sentences with those words and it's an open question. They'll have to give you more than yes, no. The reason I put a little elephant there is because it always makes me think of the story by Rudyard Kipling. Rudyard Kipling wrote the Jungle Book, wrote a brilliant poem, If. Go and look up If, it's superb. But also he wrote this story called The Elephant's Child. Elephant's Child was a story for his children. It's about the elephant and why it has the trunk, the long nose. It's an insatiable curiosity, I think he actually uses a made-up word, but in it there's this little poem which is perfect for us as salespeople. Perfect. Because it goes like this. I keep 6 honest serving men who taught me all I knew. Their names were what and where and why, and when and how and who. Think about it. That's why you learn. That's why children learn. They ask a ton of questions. And that's what we want to do. So we've got open, we've got closed. Now we could now go into more probing questions. So these are questions which are going to go deeper. They're going to help people think more. And for these, I like the TED language pattern. TED. Tell me, explain, describe. Tell me, explain, describe. If you use that to kick off a sentence, particularly if you just ask an open question, somebody's going to go into more depth. They're going to have to think more. That's a smart way to be managing a conversation. So we can start to use that. Another type is a hypothetical question. Hypothetical. If you had an unlimited budget, if you had a blank sheet of paper, if you were the big boss, if we were starting from scratch, those questions break people out of thinking in a box. It'll start to give them different angles. So we use a hypothetical question. A summary question is useful. We summarize what people have said. Our own benefit, make sure we've got it, but also reminding them what they have said. We don't need to say anything for a question. If you've got somebody talking, silence. Silence is golden. Particularly if it's a decent high gain question where if you see somebody's eyes moving, they're probably looking for an answer. Up, visual, sides, auditory, down, kinesthetic, feeling. Let them go with it. Don't be confusing them by asking more stuff. So keep quiet. Maybe you want to use non-verbal, not MVC, non-verbal body language to encourage people to answer. We can do that too. And so these can all be wrapped up into, so I've just mentioned this high gain question. This is a question that you get a lot from, the customer gets a lot from. It's a very carefully thought out thing based on the insights you've generated, understanding of their concept, getting them to go deep on their thinking, and you're adding value doing that. You're adding value and helping them make sense to do this. So think about how you can bring your questioning skills into play. And this is why having a meeting structure makes sense. Meeting structure is like steps through the sale. Steps through the sale so we can do the right thing at the right time. So easy to get excited and get all confused and kind of run off doing all sorts of different things, whereas we need to be stepping through bit by bit. I love an old-fashioned meeting structure, AIDA. Attention, interest, desire, action. That is what we step through. Again, it's there in the book. You can make a note next to this. Attention. It's where you move from the chit-chat, the rapport building, and hands up if you've ever sort of been chatting with somebody in a sales meeting and like gone on and on chatting. It's someone like you and you're having a good laugh. It's like, okay, right, I need to move into the next step. This is your attention grabber. So use some kind of the value proposition. Some kind of value proposition, the thing that you've worked out that they're going to be interested in, position that and say, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you some questions to see whether we are able to collaborate around this. And give me as good an answer as you possibly can. So you earn the right to move into I for interest, which is asking the questions. Asking questions, be interested in somebody. Ironically, that makes you more interesting. But yeah, we're going to ask questions around that. And so then as we're stepping through, that's ask before tell, which is then the desire and action piece. Yeah, desire is wrapping up or building a package of the stuff which is now relevant based on what people have said. Action is making sure we commit to the next steps. Does it make sense for us to do this? Yeah. Does it make sense for me to send you a proposal? Does it make sense for us to have another meeting with this person? Does it make sense for us to put a demo in place? Does it make sense for us to send you a purchase order? Yes, it does. Awesome. No. Oh, okay. Well, what do you think the next step should be? What I've just done there is the perfect close. This was taught to me by a guy called James Muir. James, top guy, we did a podcast together. He taught me through basically what's in his book around why that language pattern is so powerful. Works when we understand what the next step is because we've done our work and we understand how customers are buying, so we can position that. We're not putting any pressure on. It's an ethical approach. So there's no pressure. Buy safety is there. And so we move on. Okay, good, right. onwards with the value framework. Because what we might be proposing, does it make sense for us to, or does it make sense for me to send you a proposal? Does it make sense to set up a presentation? So here are a couple of things that are worth talking about. So proposals, they're different to quotes. They're different to quotes. Quote is kind of part number and price. A proposal sells in your absence. It's got reasons why the customer would buy. It's useful because it might be sent to other people in the decision-making unit. You don't know. Yeah, it's an opportunity to provide clarity, give a bit of extra information. It's useful for internal communication. It's a structure for a presentation. And it's showing that you're professional. It's so that you understand how this job works. Again, it's about a process. It's about a formula. It's about a framework. Again, suggested framework here. I would tend to put a background in. And this is the background to them, not you. Them. Easiest way, go to their website, look at About Us, cut and paste, drop it in. If they say we, change it to their company name. But that's what they like saying about themselves. And what you're doing here is you're saying, look, this is all about you. Right, the need piece, the next section, you have to write yourself. Yeah, because this is based on the conversation that you've had. Now, if you can't write this about them, you've not had the right conversation. So it's actually quite a good little sense check, this. But the need is like, this is the stuff you were saying, this is what you're trying to achieve, these are the problems you've got, this is the prize you're looking for, this is what's going on, and this is where you want to be. Boom, so here is our solution. This is what we would do specifically to help you deal with those. Why us? If you're templating this, that's the same every time. You can actually kind of write this out, ready, bam, 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 good stuff all about your organization, and the price. Okay, so with price, what I would recommend is you try to summarize in 3 bullet points next to the price why they would spend that money. 3 is a magic number, brains like 3s, but this is the first thing that people read. As it's the first thing that people read, we want to get our retaliation in first. Weird rugby expression, I know, but they're going to do this, so let's get them thinking about the stuff that we can do. So it's kind of like a benefit summary. Bang, there with price. They're going to read that, hopefully then go into reading the rest of the proposal. That's how this will work more effectively. We can send this. We could use some kind of funky new tech, something like Trumpet. I love Trumpet. Send Trumpet again. No affiliation, just like it. I use it myself. Or we can take this and we can animate it ourselves. So we're going to take it into a presentation. Now, presentations, a lot of stuff written around this, but there is a basic formula for presentations. I get taught this at junior school, primary school. Beginning, middle, end. You'll be amazed how many don't have that. You'll be amazed how many presentations are a mush up of information that's hard for someone to make sense of. So if we make sure we've got beginning, middle, and end, with sort of the classic bits of what would go into those, so that we can control how we're feeding the information and do a good job, then we're likely to be more successful. Beginning, middle, end. Think about that. And there's some classic bits at the beginning. Yeah, what would you expect to be there? Be an introduction, there'd be an agenda, there'd be talking about when the Q&A is, and the attention grabber. That's the piece which most people will miss. They'll sort of dribble into the presentation, get really boring. Open with impact. Think like a rock star. Think of the last concert you went to. Did they just kind of wander on and say, oh, we're going to do some album tracks? Or is it like, lights on, bang, this is our biggest hit. Audience on their feet, everybody loving it. Probably that. Why? Because they know how to manage the crowd. That's what we're doing. Bang, lights on. Now that will be, from a sales point of view, more often than not, what are they going to get from it? What's in it for them? What's the impact for them and their business? Whack that out early doors, as early as you possibly can, so people are tuned into it. We'll then go into the substance, the meat and the sandwich, if you like. So again, we're using visual aids, we're using stories, we're using things that are keeping it interesting, we're keeping the interest levels up there. Then at the end, what we'll do is we'll summarize that back. There'll be a kind of call to action, maybe you're going to do Q&A. And what I'd say is you try to put that impact piece back at the end, because that's the bit people remember. Again, go back to your concert. What do they do when they send people off into the night? After the third encore, yeah, bang, you're singing their favourite song, your favourite song, their biggest, usually. So again, think about how we can bookend with the impacts to them. Said this stuff already. It's about flipping the attention onto them. Upside down order presentations where it's all about us to begin with. Yawn. Yeah, make it about them. Lean in. A way in which we can do this is to tell stories. Now, storytelling is quite a hot topic in sales at the moment. And what I like to do in training is ask everybody's favourite Disney film. Everyone's favourite Disney film. Again, I'm asking it now. You're probably thinking about it. Star Wars is Disney, by the way. Yeah. But again, any of these kind of films, you'll find that they have a very, very, very similar storyline. It's called the monomyth. Yeah, one story. Yeah, or the hero's journey. And very basically, the hero's journey goes a little bit like this. There's your hero, except they're not a hero. Yeah, they're in the known world doing just something fundamental, boring. Yeah, Harry Potter's a good example. I know he's not Disney, but Harry, there he goes. He's not just under the stairs, isn't he? Doing under stairs things. Luke Skywalker is fixing a speeder. Yeah, Dorothy, again, not Disney, but again, it's a classic hero's journey. She's wandering around in Kansas, I guess, with Toto, something like that. Yeah, Lion King, another one. She's a little baby cub. Something happens which takes them into the unknown. It's a call to adventure. Yeah, you're a wizard, Harry. You're a Jedi, Luke. Big tornado, bang, you're into a weird different country. Yeah. Oh, and there's going to be a whole load of trials and tribulations and challenges and fights and battles and difficulties and stuff that they've got to go through. Now, while they're doing that, there will be some kind of guides, assistants, friends, mentors, people who are on their side giving them stuff to help them. Lightsabers, magic spells, red slippers, trying to think what else, all these kind of good stuff which people will use as they're going through their journey, and they come back out the other side, back into their known world normally, and they're a bigger and better version of themselves. Right, why am I talking about this in a video about sales training? It's because it helps us position ourselves. We are not the hero. Repeat, we are not the hero. The customer is. We put them at the forefront of everything. We're anticipating their journey, their problems, their struggles, and we're providing stuff to help them through. That mentality actually serves through the whole of selling. But certainly when we're telling stories within a presentation, we're putting them at the center of it. They have to recognize themselves as the hero in that story. That's what we're trying to do. Normally, the most simple story, I put this in the book actually, is 4 parts. Yeah. The company or organization that you're working with. So this is basically a case study, but salespeople hate case studies. Hate the term. Call it a success story. Yeah, we're good. The company or the organization that we're working with. Yeah, so people can recognize, oh, they're a bit like me. Then what are the challenge that they have? Yeah, well, this company, they were really struggling, trying to do something. This poor guy that I was talking to, they were really kind of under quite a lot of pressure, wasn't going well for them. Oh, okay, recognize that. This is what we did, short, and these are the results. So it turned it round for them. He said, she said, this. And if you can put metrics, you can put numbers in. Again, it's really, really helpful. That's the basic story. These are best written by salespeople because salespeople get the balance right. Yeah, we'll go name the organization, we'll go long on the challenge and describing what it was like for the customer. And if you can talk about their mental state and their emotional side, that's really good. Short on what you did, you've got to be very disciplined. It's not about you, it's about them. Longer back on the results and the metrics. Marketing get hold of this. They'll tend to want to elaborate on all the wonderful stuff that we did. That won't work because that's about you, it's not about the customer. So just think about the balance. Think about the balance in that. And that's how we can tell a really smart story that people will engage with. Okay, good. So yeah, we are now at the last element, the last part of the value framework, and this is about evolve. So this is about the right follow-up. Or really it's about outcomes. This is about the right outcomes. Potentially I should start here because we don't sell products, we don't sell services, we sell outcomes. Get that in your head as well. And again, it changes the way in which we say and do stuff. Focus in on how we do that. We sell outcomes. Yeah, the results that somebody's looking for. When we position it like that, it changes again our conversations. And that goes for me into the way in which we have these QBRs, which I say are a massive waste of time, repositioned as QBRs. So QBR, here's what we said we'd do. We did it. And well, you expected a customer to give you a little attaboy. Yeah, well done. No, you said you were going to do it. I've paid you to do that. Quarterly value review. So this is where we're talking about the value that people have received from working with us or are receiving. Yeah, what's going well? What do you like? Where are you getting value? What are we doing well? What do we need to do more of? I would position these with a senior person involved as well. So we take this stuff so seriously. This is why I brought this person in. Tends to bring a senior person out of the woodwork. And we're talking about stuff which is more going forward actually, rather than reviewing what's already happened. So we want to go into that. So this is all about, we're going to continue building the relationship, If we're delivering on the outcomes and we're getting close to the people that we know, this is what we're doing. And this is kind of how partners think. This is the stuff that's there in the book. Yeah, really thinking about how do we move this stuff forward because we're getting close to the people we're working with. There we have the value framework. Shared a lot of stuff there. I've mentioned the book. Please download that, make your notes in that, because that's what's going to get you to do stuff. Yeah, at the moment it's just information. I'm all about implementation. Implementation is where we make the difference. Implementation is where we get a steep learning curve. I don't understand why often this is perceived as a negative thing. Oh, it's a bit of a steep learning curve. Yeah, excellent. We get performance faster and smoother. So if you haven't been taking notes as you go along, perhaps rewind this, perhaps go back and make some little notes, what I was saying, but more importantly, what you can do. If you're doing it already, put a massive tick, put a smiley face. Awesome, more of it. If it's something that was a bit newer, have a think about how you can implement that based on what we were talking about there. This stuff will make a difference. I will encourage you to take these ideas and to start to use them.
Here we are, the end. Or is it actually the beginning? Because now is the time to really make a difference, to take the stuff that we've been talking about and start to implement it. I say this all the time, that implementation beats information. And that's how I've presented this stuff so that you can take it and use it. And that's where you're going to get results from. Now, we've covered a lot of stuff. We've covered those challenges that salespeople have. We wanted to look at those so that you could see them and see if there's anything that's affecting you, and you can get some quick wins by addressing them straight away. We then looked at some of the blockers that people involved in engineering sales might have. So those mindset shifts that you need to make so that you can be successful in this world. It allowed us to get into then more of the actual selling stuff. So thinking about how sales has evolved, what are the different things that have happened over the years? Stuff that's still good, want to hang on to that. And there might be modern tweaks that we need to consider. And there's also stuff we need to get rid. It's not going to be serving us. We thought about thinking like a partner, how we can be more collaborative in the way that we work. So aligning with customers, working alongside them, co-creating. The value framework helps us to do that. It helps us to take those things and package them in a way that we can understand. Validate, align, leverage, underpin, and evolve. So right opportunities, right research, right conversations, right solutions, right outcomes. Remember, people buy outcomes, they buy results. Everything is driving towards that. So we had that framework, and we went into the very tactical part of this video where we went into those 15 different elements. 15 elements chosen so that you can take them and pretty much start to use them straight away. So that's where we are. If you haven't already downloaded the workbook and put notes into that, do so now. Also, those other assets, those things that I was dropping as we were going along, you can use those to help you implement all this stuff. Download them, use them. Share this. Now, if there's other people you know working in a similar industry, buddy up with them and start to do some of these things together. It will make life so much easier for you. If you're a sales leader, share this with the team. Get this stuff out there and get in touch. Please do let me know if you've got to this part of the video. Let me know what you've put in place. Let me know what's working. Let me know if you need anything else. Let me know if you get stuck. If you've got any questions, let me know. Please do. Ultimately, this is what I stand for. It's about having good people doing good things in a good way. If I can help you to do that, then that is something that I'm here to support. So please get in touch, let me know, and I wish you all the best in how you take this stuff and implement it. So, just one more thing. Sounds like Columbo, doesn't it? But I've been thinking about how we can make sure that you implement all of this stuff. That's why I've included a link below to the 90-day Activator. Now, it's a paid-for course. You don't need it because I've given you all the material that you require to put this stuff in place. However, what this course will do is it will outline a 90-day program so that you don't feel the overwhelm in putting this stuff in place. That's what's included in it. So yes, there are some other videos similar to the stuff that we've talked about in this, but really it's that 90-day activation where when you sign up to this, you will start to get emails over the course of those 12 weeks. Beginning of the week, this is what you're going to do. End of the week, this is what you should have done. It's going to help you implement that without feeling so overwhelmed. That's what I've included. Like I say, look, you don't need it because you have all the information now, the workbooks, the scorecards, all the stuff I've talked about, you've got it. This will just help you put it into place. Paid for course if you want to get that little extra nudge in making sure this is turning into success for you.